I want to talk to you about something that could change the way we use the internet forever. And I'm not even exaggerating, it kind of really is that big. It's a case that went in front of the US Supreme Court this week, Gonzalez versus Google. And at the heart of it is something called Section 230. Now, Section 230 is part of an American law that goes back almost 30 years. It's not a long section, like this is it. It's like 26 words, but it's super important and has basically defined the internet as we know it. So here it is. No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. So, what does that mean? Well, first of all, interactive computer service is actually just sort of a hilarious way of saying social platform. But more importantly, Section 230 is, think of it like a legal shield for platforms like, Facebook, YouTube, or TikTok, where people share content because, and let me just sort of further simplify this. No social platform shall be treated as the publisher of any information provided by another. So if someone on Facebook calls you a lying thief, you can't sue Facebook. You can only sue the person who called you a lying thief. And that's it. That bit of ancient legal history is what allows sites to host all the crazy things we post without fear of being sued into oblivion for all of the crazy things we post. But what about the stuff that these sites recommend to you, right? Like not exactly their content per se, but content that they're suggesting you watch. Well, that's where Gonzalez v. Google comes in, because YouTube doesn't just host content, it actually pushes specific content to you based on what it thinks you're into. And that's what the Gonzalez family is suing over. Their daughter was killed in a terrorist attack, and they say Google, which owns YouTube, is responsible for spreading terrorist propaganda through its recommendation algorithm. Now, Google's position is, look, we have to sort things and tailor content to people, because if we didn't, and you just got millions of random videos dumped onto your lap, YouTube would be completely unusable. And when you think of it that way, you can start to understand the stakes here, right? Because what about any search function? Could you sue Google for the types of results that they serve up to you? Our producer, Lauren Bird, has been following the Supreme Court hearings, and she's going to help us break it down. Hey, Lauren.
Hey.
So let's talk about what we've actually heard at the Supreme Court hearings.
Yeah, so, it turns out it's not so easy to make a decision about the future of the internet. So the lawyer for the plaintiffs, he's saying, Google is liable because it is recommending videos to watch. So even though it's not creating these videos, it's hosting them, and it's telling you, here's what you should watch next, here's a thumbnail, this is what makes it interesting. And, it's really, in that action, it's really going beyond what you've asked for. And so in that sense, it's kind of pushing the boundaries or even infringing on 230. But Google's lawyer, she says 230 is really what has made the internet what it is today. Back in the 90s, Congress made the decision to not infringe on what could be put out there on the internet, and this was part of that. And so this case is really confronting the idea of the internet that we have today. And it was clear, after 3 hours of questioning, the justices were confused about what limitations this argument could be put on this argument, or how far it could really go, how it could be applied, and what it would mean for things like restaurant reviews, for likes, for retweets.
We're a court. We really don't know about these things. These are not like the 9 greatest experts on the internet.
The implications were pretty wide-reaching, and they seemed apprehensive about making a sweeping decision that could have such wide-ranging implications.
Right, because I guess that sort of makes me wonder, what is the range of outcomes here? Like what could the Supreme Court decide to do moving forward as it weighs what it heard?
Yeah, so there's quite a few things. I mean, a lot of the analysis is that they could maybe send this back to Congress.
Boy, there is a lot of uncertainty about going the way you would have us go, in part just because of the difficulty of drawing lines in this area, and just because of the fact that once we go with you, all of a sudden we're finding that Google isn't protected. And maybe Congress should want that system, but isn't that something for Congress to do, not the court?
Could it be sent back down to the lower courts?
Are we really the right body to draw back from what had been the text and consistent understanding in courts of appeals?
That's something that could happen. And, could them saying we're confused, they repeated that again and again.
I'm afraid I'm completely confused by whatever argument you're making at the present time.
I guess I'm thoroughly confused, but let me try to understand what your argument is.
Well, I'm still confused.
Is that sort of a signal that they don't want to issue a decision on this?
Well, and because, you've talked about the potential ramifications of issuing a decision that sides particularly with the Gonzalez family, right? Like what that could represent in terms of the uprooting of decades of tradition and the sort of legal immunity, right, that we afford social platforms like Facebook or YouTube. And yeah, like this could be a pretty big game changer.
Absolutely. And, it could cause, it could open the floodgates for lawsuits, not just ones when it comes to content based on terrorism, but lawsuits based on libel or defamation.
Lawsuits will be nonstop on defamatory material, which there's a lot of, that is out there and finds its way onto the websites that host third-party conduct. And there'll be lots of lawsuits. You agree with that?
There's a myriad of things that could come out of this. And, so much of the internet is based on recommendation algorithms. So you think about Netflix, Google, Tinder, those will have to change, presumably depending on what the decision is. But it would have huge ramifications in those sectors as well.
Well, you can see why the justices are struggling with the decision.
Yeah.
Lauren Bird, thanks very much.
Thanks.